To Talented Teacher Coaches podcast. I am Jenny Manus. I've been teaching in North Carolina for 12 years. I teach reading and writing, English language arts. I've taught primarily in urban schools. Um, I love working with all kinds of students, and my colleague Betsy and I are here to bring you some important, tried and true, but also new ideas about how to be a great teacher, regardless of where you are in your career.
And my name is Betsy. It's actually Elizabeth, but the last name is Huff, Hough. And I have been teaching in North Carolina for this will be my 26th year coming up. And so Jenny is right. We are here to try to just give everybody, first year teachers all the way up to veteran teachers, tips on how to do things that we know work. And so, with like 35 years experience between the two of us, we feel pretty confident that we can offer you all suggestions to make your teaching experience the best and to train you to be a talented teacher. And so we're going to get just go ahead and just jump right into our first topic. So we discussed this a little bit yesterday, and we said, what is the very first thing that you need to know as a first year teacher, or if you're a veteran teacher and you're moving to a new school? What is it that you need to know as sort of that first year teacher? And so we sort of divvied this up into five different things, and we will take care of each of those five things during these podcasts. So this first week is going to be on knowing your responsibilities as a teacher. A lot of people come into teaching and they think, oh, all I've got to do is show up and teach the kids, and then I go home and I'm done. And I promise you, there is way more than that. There is way more than that.
And it can
Um,
feel so overwhelming, Betsy, but I think part of it, especially for the freshest, newest teachers, is that no one really sits you down and tells you the nitty gritty of what you need to know those first few weeks of school as a brand new teacher or at a brand new school. There's lots of little things, and so we're going to try to, cover those very specific requirements or things you need to know right out of the gate.
Yeah, and so it's really important that right out of the gate, you know what you're responsible for, and it can seem overwhelming and you will get stressed out. There's no doubt that you're going to be under some stress because of all the things that have to be done. And so you might not even know anybody in your school. You might not be friends with anybody. You probably won't get assigned a mentor that you can ask questions to until maybe after those first teacher work days at the beginning of the year. So it's really important that you sort of have in mind some of these things, and then you ask questions about these things too, because these things can be different at different schools, right? So it's really important to know what your responsibilities are. So we sort of talked about some of these things as we were preparing for this. So the very first thing that you should do when you're knowing your responsibilities is find out if there is a school handbook and or a county handbook or a state handbook. Like, there's lots of different handbooks that are required of us as teachers, and they go over a variety of information, but the most important one will be your school handbook. It talks about things like what do you do if you're tardy, or what do you do if you're going to be absent, what do you do if you want to take paid time off. What are some of those kind of things that you need to know up front? Because you might get sick the second day of school and you need to know how to handle that situation.
Yeah, know how your paid time off builds per month. Like in North Carolina, we get one paid sick day a month that accrues and carries on, through the end of the year and then on to the next year. Um, And so it's really important to know how much time you have to take paid off for sick leave, of course, but for other things like if your child is sick and you have to stay out, or you need to use a sick day for appointments outside of school. It's good to know how much you have before you have to take it off, with the exception of, emergency illnesses or, getting the flu, not realizing that you got it. So, trying to think of what else. As far as the handbook is concerned, dress policies, um, what your rights are in the school and outside of the school, um, protocols for things like dress codes for the students, different behavioral and disciplinary things that you can know ahead of time about how to deal with student issues, how to deal with personnel issues if you're having, interpersonal issues with a supervisor or a colleague, who do you go talk to? How do you get that documented? What are the steps? And so all of those things in your handbook are just really important. And I would just suggest, reading chunk at a time, making sure you understand one section, jotting some notes down if you have questions about anything specific, and then try to move through it, and always revisit it if you're unsure of how to handle something.
Yeah, and it's really important what Jenny said about asking questions. If there's something that you're confused about, then maybe the person that hired you, whether that's an assistant principal or a principal, you go to that person to actually discuss with them, your questions. It's really important that you find out the answers to your questions so that you know how to be the best teacher that you are. Along with that, so you're reading the handbook not only for your school but possibly for your county. But on top of that, there might be things that are listed in that handbook that you need to do that are outside of the classroom, right? Again, a lot of us go into teaching. I remember my first year and I thought, well, I'm just going to go in here and teach these kids, and that's going to be
Sorry.
the end of it. And that's the end of my day, right? Well, then I didn't realize that I had bus duty and I had to go and stand outside in the pouring rain or the snow or whatever to make sure that the students are on the bus, or that maybe even though I have eighth grade students, I might have to walk them to their elective classes or to their classes because they constantly need supervision, and sometimes things are a little chaotic and we have to lock down the kids and walk them to places because they can't handle that responsibility. So there are things that you're responsible for outside of the classroom. Bus duty, lunch duty. What meetings do you have? In our county, we have this thing that's called professional learning community, PLCs. We meet once a week. We plan together. We discuss what we're doing in class, and maybe you can steal something or borrow something, or you hear a great idea and you're going to manipulate that in your class. So what weekly meetings do you have? There's
We
other
have after
things.
school meetings too,
Yes. Staff
monthly
meetings.
staff
Yes.
meetings if you volunteer, which we would not advise your first year teaching, but if you volunteer to be on, um, I don't know, the safety committee or a committee that's for beautifying, improving school grounds, those meetings all happen after school. And so you want to know what your responsibilities are as far as where you need to be and when. And if you are not sure, ask. Ask. You can always ask. If you look in the handbook and you have a very pointed question that is not in the handbook, it's not answered in the handbook, find someone, like Betsy said, who hired you. If you've made friends with a teacher down the hall, find someone and ask, because we just want you to be prepared and not have anyone come back to you and say, why didn't you do that? Or why didn't you know that? It's not meant to be punitive. It's just teaching is all encompassing. It's very chaotic. And so being as prepared as possible and by asking questions if you're not sure is paramount.
And it's sort of, it seems like something small, but does your school require you to have your ID badge on you at all times? Is it visible? Do you get a dress down Friday to have like jeans? Like all of these kind of little small things that you might not know as a first teacher, and people may not offer them to you. Like you're the newbie, and so they might not tell you, oh, hey, guess what? You get to wear jeans on Friday. Or if you donate to United Way campaign, you'll have 5 free jean days, or, just little things like that that you might not think about as a first year teacher, right? Those things would never occur to a first year teacher. Um, but also on top of that, there's other deadlines that you may like have that are in that handbook. And so you might have a deadline for a sub book, a sub notebook to be created. I know at a couple of our schools, we had to have our sub notebook created within the first 2 weeks of school. So we had seating charts in there, and we had this bell schedule,
And
and
the
we had
roster.
rosters. We had all of these things, and we'll actually give a podcast on that a little bit later for sub notebooks and how to prepare those things. And we can even give you some like documents where you can keep that together in a folder. I would suggest that it is in a hard copy instead of digital for a sub notebook, just because the subs don't have typically substitutes don't have passwords to computers and things like that.
Right.
So that really needs to be sort of a hard copy. Um, but also there are emergency plans, and you may or may not in your district have OSHA trainings. And we have OSHA trainings that we have to do that they're due once a month, or we might have 2 videos a month and they have to be done. And your principal might say, hey, 30% of our school has done these OSHA trainings. And so they're anything from like bloodborne pathogens and not touching students when they're bleeding, all the way up to like active shooter training. So
Right.
you may have these things in person that you take care of at staff meetings, or you may have these videos that you're required to watch. And you don't have any idea about that unless you ask, or if somebody is like willing to provide that information for you. So it's really, really important that some of these little things, that you may or may not know, and they most certainly will not teach you in college to ask a lot of these questions. Like even if you're in an education program, a lot of these things are not going to sort of be brought up to you in the classroom where you're actually learning. That's more about like the pedagogy and all of the content and that kind of thing. These little things that you are responsible for are often not told to you ahead of time, even if you are a student teacher.
Well, and two, I think that one habit a lot of teachers make is assuming that new teachers just are picking up and making notes and catching everything that they may hear in conversation, or even that someone tells them directly. It's not that, I don't think it's not that, veteran teachers or teachers who have been at the same school together for years, I don't think they're trying to necessarily sabotage anyone or leave anyone out. It's just, I think that's one fault that I would be willing to admit I have, is sometimes I'll see a new teacher and I'll think, well, surely someone's shown them how to use Power School and they haven't been shown yet. And so that's why you just ask. If you're not sure, ask. Um, Cover your training manuals well, and as you continue to hear things and do things over and over again, it will be easier. But eventually you're going to be a veteran teacher and you'll remember these podcasts and think, okay, I saw a new social studies teacher on my hall. I should go check to see if they know how to enter grades.
Yes.
Or whatever it is that you really struggled with, or if you can remember what you really struggled with. Teachers, new teachers and veteran teachers always need help. And so don't be upset if a veteran teacher doesn't always come check and ask you a very specific question. Just know that we are all very busy, but not too busy to help.
Yes, and that's important too. Just something like that. Grades. Are they due once a week? Are they due every few days? What is the turnaround for communication with students and with parents? These things are listed in typically listed in the handbooks of your school that the principal or the assistant principals have put together for you, and it's really really important that you know those things. And so, first year teachers, it can be really overwhelming because, again, I can't emphasize this enough. You go in there thinking that all you have to do is teach, and there's really so much more to it than that. And you really, and we'll talk about this next week, but we'll talk about getting support and searching for your person that you can talk to. So Jenny and I worked together at a school for, 3 or 4 years, and I had mentors, but I would stop in and even check on her, even though, we weren't on the same grade level and we didn't teach the same group of kids. And she wasn't my mentee, but I would check in and say, hey, how are you? Because we taught the same content, right? And so I would in on people because I was at the school for longer and I had done this sort of thing, and just check in on people to see how they're doing. Not all veteran teachers will do that. Sometimes you will have to seek help. And it's really, really important. You have to sometimes seek that help. We'll talk more about that next week when we talk about getting support. And so we covered a lot, but we do have one more sort of thing that is really, really important that you sort of find out about the first week of school, or you should find out about. And if you do not find out about it, you have to seek this out. This might be one of the most important things. You have to seek out and look at your schedule and see if you have any EC students. And EC, if you don't know, stands for Exceptional Children. You might have inclusion students that have been labeled with a disability. For example, they might be learning disabled in reading, and they'll be a part of your reading class. Or they might be learning disabled in writing, and they'll just have like a 15-minute session with an EC teacher that helps them with that writing. It doesn't really matter what their label is. Most of the time, you will see an IEP or a 504 for these students, and you have to follow those accommodations. If you don't, you can be held liable, and there can be lawsuits filed. So,
Yes, and an IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan in our county, and I believe on the state level. But my daughter goes to a school that's not a public school in the county, and theirs are called student, it's an SAP, it's a student academic plan. Whatever it is called, it's where all the accommodations, the special things that these children might be given or receive because they're learning disabled in some form or fashion. Do they get shorter assignments? Do they get a separate classroom to take a test in with less students? Do they have issues with attention? Maybe they are supposed to, by law, in their IEP, sit in the front or in the center of the room. Knowing those documents, knowing who your assigned EC teacher is, you will be assigned an exceptional children, some people call it special education, teacher who is supposed to work with you in the class you have your EC students. When are they supposed to be there? How long are they supposed to be there? Who are they pulling out if they pull them out for small group? When is that happening? The reason why it's important to know all these things up front is so that when you, as a new teacher, are in the middle of a great lesson and you're interrupted by, not even interrupted, it's just an EC teacher is coming in to help with those students that they're supposed to be helping. You don't want to be, flustered or why are they in here, or stop teaching to say, how can I help you? So knowing, who those children are, who your teacher, your assigned EC teacher is, and then what they're supposed to be getting and when will help a lot.
Yeah, and that's really important because you sometimes when you have an EC class, an inclusion class, if it's interrupted, that can really cause a distraction for the students. So you want to know like when to expect that student. Can you maybe take us or take that teacher? When do you expect that teacher? And should you fit that into your lesson somehow? Should they be doing independent work when that teacher comes in? So she might can pull them to the side. How is that going to fit into your lesson plan? That's really important. And a lot of times that's not something that you're trained to do again in education courses is to plan your lesson around the arrival of an EC teacher or a support person. Occasionally you might have an EC student that has, I don't know, a one-on-one. And so you might have two other adults in the room with you. You might have an EC teacher that helps with a group of 10 students or 15, and then one other adult that just is sitting there with one individual student. And so
Mm-hmm.
you need to decide, can you help? Can you have help from that one individual teacher that's supposed to be a one-on-one? If you need someone to take up papers or pass out papers, will they be a support to you or do they have to be constantly beside that student? Your EC teacher, do you want to do a co-teaching type of thing? Meet with them and ask them, do you want to teach a lesson 2 days a week? Are we going to do this like a tag team where I'm teaching and then you sort of interject some things? Are you going to do a mini lesson to sort of cover your 15 students? If they all have sort of a writing goal, then they can do a mini lesson. That's their piece. And then you can go on with the rest of your content. Those are things that are so important.
And I will tell you, Betsy, at the school that we worked at together for 5 years, um, um, I just remember that very clearly. I got to co-teach with an EC teacher who was phenomenal. And I, as a like brand new teacher, I watched her while she co-taught with me, and it changed my life. I mean, just seeing how she interacted with students, how she dealt with behavior issues, how she delivered a lesson, how she took answers to questions, all of it. Just watching her while we were co-teaching gave me so many great ideas. I really credit that person for um, helping me be the teacher I am today. So you might get really lucky and just get an EC teacher who is wonderful, open, wants to help you, and you learn so much. It can be a great, great thing.
And that's important too. A lot of times you may have your EC teacher with you for the full 60,
Mhm.
75, 90 minutes, however long, and they can be like a true co-teacher. Again, at the same school, this was before Jenny came, but I was blessed to have the same EC teacher for 3 years in a row. And she was with me, and she actually, I set my room up where both of our names were on the door. She had a desk in my classroom, and
That's awesome.
the students literally did not know which was the special ed teacher and which was the
It was the
regular ed
same for
teacher
us.
because we actually bounced back and forth in some lessons. She taught some days and I taught some days, and it was a true co-teaching model.
It's
And you can
amazing.
get some of the best growth out of students when you have that kind of dynamic. And when you have a teacher that's there that can teach, and then you can sort of help with discipline problems and manage questions. And then you sort of vice versa. You're both sort of in charge of the classroom. That's not as easy to do when an EC teacher gets, 30 minutes with you, right? If they're just going to pop in for 30 minutes and that's it. But if you have a true co-teaching situation with your EC teachers, it can be a lifesaver. And so that's about the that's about all we have. If you have any questions, then you can email us at our email address, which is listed